Rigby's Roads, Chapter 7, Born to be Wild. When Jack returned home, he changed his clothes, put on his jeans, new Harley t-shirt, and boots. He grabbed his helmet and attached the tinted windshield. Each time he started to get on the bike, he would think of something else that he needed for his inaugural ride. Damn, I forgot my gloves. Oops, I better bring my cell phone. Wait, I better bring that owner's manual in case I need it. After 10 minutes of back and forth, going through the door between the garage and the kitchen, he finally sat on the bike, and it was time. He opened the garage door, turned the gas valve on, pulled the choke, turned on the key, then turned the engine switch to on. He felt like he was back at NASA again, anticipating liftoff. He hit the starter button, and his Harley came to life. Houston, we have ignition. He looked over at Yogi, who was now standing at the kitchen door. Yogi gave him a thumbs up, and Jack nodded back with the nod. He flipped down his tinted visor, pulled in the clutch, tapped the bike into first gear, and drove down the driveway. He stopped at the end of the driveway and looked at his odometer that read 8.4 miles. He revved the bike a little bit and smiled at the sound. He scanned up and down the street, hoping for one of his neighbors to spot him. Anyone would do, but there was no one in sight. He drove off and headed for the mountains, less than 12 minutes from his house. He took the back roads along the foothills, up to Highway 72, which was great. The power of the bike was incredible. The wind was rushing by him, and he could smell the outdoors like it was something new to be discovered. He felt like he was flying. He remembered that he had to break the bike in properly and keep it under 50 miles an hour for the first 50 miles, then under 55 until 500 miles. A guy on a motorcycle approaching from the other direction gave Jack a wave, and Jack waved back as they passed each other. He remembered Wheels telling him to ask Yogi about the wave, but he forgot. Another biker passed, and this time Jack waved first, but that rider ignored him. Now he was confused. There was more to this wave than he realized. He was determined to unlock the mysteries of the wave before he returned back home. The road snaked into the mountains, back and forth between the high-peaked ridges. It followed a river that collected the melting snow from the surrounding mountains. His motorcycle classwork reminded him to be constantly scanning ahead and be looking to identify any quick decisions he would have to make. A group of 5 motorcycles were approaching up ahead, and he decided to wait for the wave rather than initiate it. They all had their left hands out, using 2 fingers only, pointing down at the road. He responded with the same gesture. He recognized they were Harleys, and he deduced this seemed to be the proper wave for Harleys. Another group of motorcycles approached, and 2 of the 3 kept their hands on the handle grip and only raised their fingers. These were the Japanese bikes, crotch rockets, Yogi called them. He was starting to see a trend with the waves. It didn't matter if it was one Harley or a group of Harleys. They all gave him the same respectful 2-fingered wave pointing downward, as if he had become a new member of a secret lodge. Jack would bet that if he ever broke down or ran out of gas, a fellow Hog member would soon be at his rescue, and he liked that feeling. The first 50 miles were easy, and he found himself approaching the Netherland traffic circle. He chose to go further into the mountains, to the town of Ward, because the alternative would bring him back into the center of Boulder, and he didn't want to get stuck in traffic. He was trying to get quick miles, to break it in, and he didn't want to sit and wait at traffic lights. He smelled every restaurant before he passed it, and he experienced a buffet of menu smells. He saw things that he never saw before on these same roads he had traveled hundreds of times. It was a totally new experience with all of his senses, and it awoke childhood memories and a certain sense of freedom, with no worries in the world. 3 o'clock. It was getting late, and he only had his dark-tinted face shield with him, which would make it harder to see after the sun went down. He was hungry, but it was his dry throat that beckoned to be serviced first. He stopped for gas and bought a small bottle of water. The odometer read 118 miles, and the gas took 2.21 gallons to fill it up. He took out a mini notebook that he always carried for ideas and jotted down the information. Date, odometer reading, miles driven, gallons, and price per gallon. He was surprised that he managed 53.3 miles per gallon, and he decided to keep track of his mileage and put it on a spreadsheet when he returned home. 2.5 hours later, after the garage door closed, the odometer read 219 miles. He took off his helmet and gloves, but he stayed on the seat, not wanting to get off. He felt so good that he sat there for almost 5 minutes, smiling. He started to think about where tomorrow's ride would take him, but his concentration was interrupted when he heard the doorbell ring. He got off the bike and looked out the garage window. A man he did not recognize, dressed in dark casual clothes, had his hands cupped on the front door window and was looking in. Jack could see through the connecting kitchen door that all the lights in the house were not on yet, and maybe Yogi was still zoned into his computer with his headphones on, unaware of the approaching night or the stranger at the door. Jack realized something was not right. The stranger had no car parked out front. He rang the bell again, knocked on the door, and he suspiciously turned his head around to see if the neighbors were watching him. A slow-moving car with its headlights off passed in front of the house, and the man at the door turned and nodded his head and then waved him up the street. Jack's heart started to pound extremely fast, and his body felt flushed with fear. The man crouched down and appeared to be playing with the doorknob. He picked the lock, opened the door, and entered the house. Jack's mind went into overdrive. Is it a burglar? Where's Yogi? Is that guy armed? This doesn't look like a random break-in. What is he looking for? Was it somebody Yogi pissed off? Was it the paper stealer, Marshall? Maybe it was one of Wheel's chapter riders who staked out the place on that poker run. Jack looked around for a weapon. The rake? No. The shovel? No. Johnny's old baseball bat? Yes. He put his helmet back on, strapped it tight, and put his gloves back on for a better grip of the bat. He took a few short practice swings. He moved quietly to the kitchen door entrance and raised his head up to the bottom edge of the window and searched for movement in the dark house. The burglar was nowhere in sight. Jack remembered he had his wife phone with him. He pulled it out of his pocket and hit the speed dial, number 1. He moved it up to his ear, and bam! He hit the helmet still on his head. He started to take off the helmet, but he couldn't maneuver the strap with his gloves on, so he frantically took the gloves off first. He finally picked up the phone again, and all he heard was dead air. This was not good. Where was Yogi? He hit speed dial 50, waiting for Wheels to pick up. Wheels answered. "Yeah, what's up?" He whispered. "Wheels, it's me, Jack. Someone's breaking into my house, and I don't know where Yogi is." Wheels replied. "Can you speak up a little?" "No, I can't. There's somebody breaking into my house. Yogi doesn't answer his phone." "Okay, stay low. I'll have somebody there in a few minutes." Jack continued to spy through the kitchen door window. Suddenly, the bathroom door opened and allowed light into the room. It was Yogi. Jack opened the kitchen door and stepped in and yelled, "Yogi, there's a burglar in the house." Yogi stared at Jack, who had his helmet on and was brandishing a baseball bat. But before Yogi could react, the burglar ran towards Yogi and pushed him into Jack, causing them to tumble to the floor together. The burglar ran out the front door. Yogi and Jack jumped up from the floor just in time to see the guy approach the street where the car met him, and they drove off. They turned the lights on. Jack questioned Yogi. Are you okay? Why didn't you answer your phone?" "I'm all right. I did answer my phone. I saw it was you, but I didn't hear anything." "Any idea who that guy was?" Jack responded. "I was going to ask you the same thing." Yogi's phone rang. "Yo. Hey, Uncle Bob. Yeah, I'm okay. I'm here with Jack. No, it could have been a burglar. We don't know yet." Yogi pointed his finger at Jack and then pointed around the room as if to say, "See if anything is missing." Yogi continued. "No, don't bother. We're okay." "All right, I will. Thanks." Yogi approached Jack. "Anything missing?" I don't know. I can't tell. It's hard to scan the room and notice if anything's missing. I didn't see him with anything in his hands when he ran out for that car, Yogi added. I was taking a shower. How long was he in here? Jack replied. 3, maybe 4 minutes. What do you think he was looking for? I don't know, but something's not right, Yogi muttered. They searched the downstairs room for signs of open drawers, misplaced items, and missing things, but nothing looked out of the ordinary. They sat on the couch trying to make sense of it all, but came up blank, and eventually changed the conversation. Jack updated Yogi on his incredible day, his ride in the mountains, and decided to show off his new knowledge of the wave. Wheels told me to ask you about the wave, but I think I have it figured out. He leaned out to the edge of the couch, like he was riding his motorcycle. When you pass another Harley, you put your 2 fingers out and aim them at the ground at a 45-degree angle. If another motorcycle comes at you and you're not sure if it's a Harley, you hold out your hand straight out. And if one of those crotch rockets comes at you, then you don't wave, but if they wave at you, you just lift your fingers off the handle grip and raise them with a little wiggle, leaving the rest of your hand still. Yogi burst out laughing, grabbed his stomach, and rolled over on the couch. Jack looked at him, confused. What's so funny? It was good to see him act like a kid, and Jack enjoyed seeing this side of him. When Yogi's laughter died down, he looked at Jack while shaking his head. Who did you learn that crap from? Jack, now looking perplexed and somewhat aggravated, replied, I picked up that pattern from my ride. Oh, so you take one ride on a Harley, and you've picked up the entire culture, did you? You are a good observer, and you are partially correct, but it doesn't play that way with everybody. You can wave to any Harley any way you want. There is no right or wrong way. However, what you have described happens a majority of the time, but it's not a stone-fast rule like the secret handshake. Jack looked lost. Secret handshake? Yeah, didn't Wheels go over that at the dealership? Yogi paused, then burst out laughing again. Sorry, I couldn't help it. Jack picked up a pillow from the couch and hit Yogi with it, who was still laughing. Jack started laughing, and they were like 2 kids at a sleepover, beating each other with the pillows. The next morning, he woke up early, made breakfast, pulled out some maps. Yogi sat down at the kitchen table across from him, poured his cereal into a large bowl. What are the maps for? I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to ride today. Yogi shook his head. Jack, put the maps away. Where did you ride yesterday? In the mountains along 72? How many times have you been on that road? 50? Maybe 100 times or more? Yeah, so? It's against the law to ride your Harley down the same road twice in 2 days. Yogi scolded him. Is that like the secret handshake thing? Jack inquired. No, Jack. This is my law of life. There are over 4 million miles of roads in the U.S., and you want to go down the same roads over and over again. You can't do that. I'll bet there are over 50 different roads that connect to that road you took yesterday. And from those 50 turnoffs, there are probably another 200 more roads that turn off of them. Jack, don't ride your Harley like you live your life. When you leave here today, every time you stop at a stop sign or a traffic light, turn right. Do that 4 times, then make 4 lefts at the next 4 stops. If you wind up on a major highway, get off at the first exit and pick up a different road. Jack was taking mental notes because he needed something real to take the place of the maps. But if I make 4 rights, won't that put me in a circle and come right back to where I was? Don't be so damn analytical, Jack. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Try it as an experiment and see what happens. Yogi added, riding this bike is like a metaphor for your life. You need to take the road not taken, the one you're not familiar with. Go for the unknown chance and see what life brings you. This bike and what you do with it allows you to be in control of your destiny. Choose to be different. Make things happen. Jack folded the maps and put them aside. He went to the closet and dug out an old backpack. He took 2 bottles of water from the fridge and wrapped them each in kitchen towel and stuffed them into the backpack. He also snuck the maps in when Yogi wasn't looking. He would try not to use them, but felt better that they were there in case he got lost. He had on the same clothes he wore yesterday and made a mental note to buy more Harley t-shirts. He caught a whiff of a smell. Whoa, this shirt has its own aroma, but I'm riding alone, so what if I stink? Hey, I'm going down a different road already, and I like it. He felt more prepared today. He put on some sun lotion, took his Y-phone, his notebook and pen, some Kleenex, a hat, his motorcycle manual, his clear visor in case he stayed out late, and put them into his backpack. He took 2 bungee cords and strapped the backpack to the back of his bike. Yogi looked at him. So where you headed? Jack smiled. I have no idea. Good, Yogi replied. Ride safe and keep the shiny side up. Jack had one stop to make before his adventure began. He rode to work, picked some flowers, brought them to Bonnie's desk, and left before anyone showed up. Then he rode to the top of Highway 36 that overlooked Boulder and scanned the horizon. He saw some hot air balloons about 5 miles away, scattered along the mountain's edge. So he made it his journey to get as close as he could and ride under them. His quest took him through the back roads and along farms as he traveled on roads that he never knew existed. Sometimes he would reach a dead end, turn back to the last turning point, and take the other road. It was great. He finally got close enough to be under one of the hot air balloons. As he looked up, the people were waving down at him. He waved back spiritedly. Then it hit him, this kismet connection of the balloonists riding the winds of the skies, not knowing where it would take them, and his own journey with the excitement of his own unknown destiny for the day. It was Yogi's philosophy staring him in the face. After riding under his 3rd balloon, he realized he had put on 123 miles and needed gas. He stopped and looked down the barren road in both directions. He had no idea where he was, and he almost started to panic and go for the maps, but he hesitated. He pulled over to the side of the road, turned off the bike, took off his helmet, took out a bottle of water, and the water was no longer cold, but it did quench his dry mouth. As he raised his hand to drink, he heard the loud rush of a roaring wind. It was a hot air balloon riding above him, adding more flame to their canopy. He looked up and shouted, "Hey there!" Someone else shouted back, "Hello!" It reminded him of Henry's drawn-out greeting, and he yelled up, "Do you see any gas stations anywhere?" He could see them scouting the area, and he heard someone shout down to him, "Over there, in that direction, about 3 miles. Looks like a small shopping center." Jack replied, "Thanks." He made it to the gas station with 128 miles on his trip meter, 347 total miles overall. Calculating 51 miles per gallon and knowing his tank only held 3.3 gallons, he realized he had to pay more attention to getting gas sooner, especially if he was to take these unknown journeys into the rural areas. He only needed another 150 miles to hit the break-in number, and he knew he could reach it before the day's end. He went inside the store and paid the cashier. Normally, when he went for gas, he would zip out his credit card and swipe it at the pump. But getting off the bike and walking around inside the store to stretch his legs a little bit was rather refreshing and seemed to be necessary on his all-day trek. When he came back out, another Harley pulled up next to him at the other gas pump. The guy had a bushy beard, no helmet, and he had one of those bandanas tied off the top of his head. He wore a denim jacket with the sleeves cut off, like Yogi wore, but this jacket was covered in patches and pins with almost no space left. He looked a little intimidating. Jack looked into his mirror. "Hey, I look a little scary myself." "Nah." The biker nodded at Jack as he walked by on his way into the store, and Jack returned the nod. He noticed the biker had a backpack on the back of his seat, but it seemed to fit and looked much nicer than his. He waited for the biker to come back out of the store, and he decided to take Yogi's advice and do something he normally would not do. He approached the guy with, "How you doing?" "Great. How about you?" the biker replied in a friendly voice. "Fine, thanks. I was admiring your backpack." It's an overnight bag. Bought it from Harley. It has a built-in pouch that fits right over the back of the seat and locks itself on there pretty tight. It's water-resistant, and I like all these zippered pockets. Come here and check it out." Jack was surprised at how friendly the stranger had become. The guy zipped open every compartment and gave him a tour as if he was a salesman who needed one more sale to meet his monthly quota. He even took the bag off his bike and walked it over and put it on Jack's so he could see how it looked. Jack was curious. "I'm concerned if I stop and go into a store or if I park for a couple hours someplace that when I come out, my helmet and bag will be gone. Don't you worry about that?" He replied, "Absolutely not. I can leave anything on my Harley. Nobody would dare take a thing." Jack gathered from the tone of his voice that if it wasn't a Harley, then the trust factor would be different. "My name's Buzz." He extended his hand. Jack Rigby." He reached out his hand for the handshake. It was a normal handshake, nothing secret, and he was relieved. "Nice to meet you, Jack. Just got your first Harley?" "How did you know?" Buzz laughed. "New helmet, new boots, and that paper license plate on the back sort of gave it away." Jack laughed, and their conversation bounced back and forth, touching all kinds of things. Buzz had a Sportster about 20 years ago. It was his first one also. Jack quizzed him on his Heritage Softail. It was a beautiful bike. They realized they had a lot in common, as they both knew wheels and read at the dealership. In the short time span of maybe 20 minutes, they had become good friends. They drove off in different directions, and Jack started to understand what Red had talked about, being part of the family, the mystique, the camaraderie. It was already changing his life. Jack continued his country journey. He was caught behind a slow-moving farm truck, overflowing with bales of hay. He could have passed the truck, but he held off, as the smell of the freshly cut hay had captured his senses. After about a mile, he passed the truck and was flanked on both sides of the road by cows. He was riding in third gear at a steady 30 miles per hour. His emotions were hitting new highs. He pulled up his visor and started singing to the cows. "Country roads take me home to the place I belong. Oh shit, that's the wrong state. It's that other John Denver song. Rocky Mountain High, Colorado. Rocky Mountain High, Colorado." He realized he forgot the rest of the words, but the cows didn't know, so he continued serenading his audience, repeating the same refrain over and over as he rode toward an unknown destination. Rocky Mountain High, Colorado. He was getting hungry and decided to head back towards civilization for lunch. He rode south along the foothills and was soon back in familiar territory. He spotted the Rustic Inn, an old favorite that he had not visited since before M died. When he walked in, he noticed something disturbing. Everyone was looking at him, which was something he was not used to. He pretty much led an anonymous life and was often ignored to the point of acceptance. But this was obviously different. What are they looking at? He sat down at a table for two and picked up the menu, ordered a steak sandwich, and went to the bathroom to wash up. His image in the mirror startled him. Not only did he look like a grungy biker, but he had a severe case of helmet hair. His hair was matted down in conflicting directions and looked wet and shaggy as a dog had spent the afternoon running through a sprinkler. He washed his hands and tried to correct the misdirected hair by combing his fingers across it, but it had little effect. He went out to his backpack and pulled out his hat. When he returned back inside, people were still looking at him. The hat made a difference to him, but failed to stop the stares. It bothered him that they were judging him based on his appearance, but he realized he had been doing the same thing all his life. He shrugged it off, ate his lunch, and continued on his journey, stopping once more for gas and pulling over at the 500-mile mark on his odometer. He could now open it up and go over 55, but the road he was on did not allow that venture to occur. When he pulled into his driveway, he saw Henry and Yogi in his garage. "Hello!" Henry greeted him. Henry was wearing a hat that said, "Procrastinate later." Jack pointed to Henry's legs that were scattered with Band-Aids. What's that all about? Henry replied, That's just a few holes I picked up from creating my new sprinkler system for the kids to play with. What are you working on today, Henry? I need to borrow your, come over here. My what? You know that thing with a hook that you attach to one thing and then you crank it so it hooks and pulls one thing to the other thing to get them closer? You mean a come along? Yeah, that's it. Hey, listen, Marge wants to invite you and Yogi over for the 4th of July for barbecue about 4 o'clock. Just bring an appetite. Thanks, Henry. We wouldn't miss it. We'll be there. After Henry left, Yogi grinned at Jack. Is it safe to eat there? Jack smiled. One thing about Henry, the man knows how to cook and eat. Every year, it's filet mignon and lobster tails. Guess what? I hit 500 miles today, and I'm at 511 so far. Congratulations, Jack. So where did you go today? This morning, I chased some hot air balloons, and it brought me along the foothills, then out by Lyons and up towards Loveland along the farm roads. It was great being on roads that I'd never been on before. I learned one thing. You can't have allergies and ride a motorcycle. Your sense of smell is magnified 10 times out there in the open. Yogi nodded. Let's go inside. I want to go over this Marshall guy who's been taking your paper. It's been over a week since we found out. I don't like unfinished business. And you need to keep the front porch light on all night. I changed the camera angle on the porch to cover your front door in case we get another break-in. I still haven't figured out what that was about. What about you? I got no idea, Jack replied. Probably a random break-in. I'm not going to let it bother me. So what kind of ideas do you have for Marshall? Jack pulled out a dry erase board with colored markers and started listing Yogi's different ideas. He was brilliant and came up with some clever but scary ideas. Yogi said he could sign up Marshall for hundreds of porn catalogs on the internet and have them mailed to his house and where he works. He could order books on how to cheat the IRS and send them to the IRS main office with his name on them. He could list Marshall's social security number and credit card information to a worldwide hackers group, and his credit would be ruined in 5 minutes for the rest of his life. He could even erase his life so it looked like he never existed. Or he could create a new life for him as a member of the Communist Party who helped finance Castro with monthly sums and then send this information to the Cuban radio stations in Miami. Jack interrupted. But he only stole some newspapers. He didn't kill anybody. Couldn't we take that picture of him stealing the paper and just send it to him? That should rattle him. Yeah, you could do that, but it's too easy. You need to add something extra to the mix, something with a little more flair. Yogi challenged him with, Okay, what are some of your ideas? Jack paused for a moment, his eyes looking out into space. I could basically stop the paper. Yogi countered. Jack! Okay, we could send him the picture then, or we could pick up all the dog shit on the front lawn and throw it on his lawn. Or we could take dog shit and put it in the morning paper before he picks it up. Or we could pour gasoline on his lawn and spell out the words, paper thief. And a few days later, all the grass would die, making those words appear. He told Yogi to give him one more day to mull it over, and he would make up his mind after careful consideration. End Chapter 7.